Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is Reverend Jennifer Innis, and it is my great joy to be the minister with this congregation of all races, colors, seasons, peoples, ages, and so on. This is a beloved community striving to live into its mission of embracing freedom, loving wholeheartedly, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and adding to the wholeness and the healing of the world. In that living, we welcome all people of ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, social and economic situations and abilities, and politics. We are engaged with the work of our time as we advocate for human rights and strive to be good stewards of this earth. And so in living our mission in part, we recognize the network of relationships of which we are a part in this current moment, in the past, and into the future. As part of our practice, we recognize the Peoria people, that this is their ancestral home. They were here far longer before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. And so we take a moment in worship to honor the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are today. I want to thank folks for joining us in person and online. We keep recognizing how precious it is to come together, to be with other people, to expand our circles of care. If you are new, please help us get to know you. We have all the name tags. We welcome all the questions. And I invite us all to stay for coffee and conversation in Fellowship Hall if you're joining us in person, or on Zoom if you're joining us online. We want to help to get to know each other. The connections are so essential in our lives. I want to invite folks to take a moment and turn your respective devices to worship mode. You see the handy-dandy graphic for a little help on that if you need it. We have a tech ministry, by all means. Ooh, that was spicy. Okay, little flashes there. All right. And I have a couple of notes for today. First, that you will not see, there is one of the religious education classes you will not see today, which is the junior and senior high youth. They are on a field trip to St. Paul's Episcopal Church this morning as part of their curriculum of getting to know a range of faiths. And our DLRE, Jesse Laughlin, is there with them as well. But if you have any questions about our education program, by all means, please ask. We would love to help you. And after the service today, I invite folks to come and join Regina Stanley and me in the conference room. We have a chance for coffee with the minister. This is an opportunity for kind of a smaller conversation to get to know the congregation, asking questions about Unitarian Universalism, ask questions of me. And we also even have our own designated snacks. So of course you have to come. I'm just saying. Grab some coffee and come join us. Also this afternoon, the youth got a lot good stuff going on today, because this afternoon we have the youth from the Affirming Faith Communities of Greater Peoria. The congregations involved in that have been taking turns hosting social events this year, and so it is our turn to host. We are doing tacos and games beginning at 5 p.m. So if you'd like to ask more about it, if you have a family you'd like to invite, please come and see me. We'd be happy to include everybody. I want to invite folks to turn to, there's far more than I can possibly talk about in one moment, so please turn to the order of service, check out the slides, all the good ways that we're trying to communicate those things with you and find ways to meet folks, explore this lovely congregation, all of that. So I want to offer a moment that, recognizing that the sermon for today is a topic that can be highly sensitive and complicated. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, the long-running conflict burst forth into the world in a whole new way. And I will say I needed some time to reflect and learn, and I am still learning. And all these months later, after tens of thousands of deaths and the obliteration of so much life and infrastructure, I'm going to try to say something. I ask that we listen to one another, and I'm going to say the first thing I'm going to say is that just because I'm wearing blue is not an outward signal of support for anybody's side. I'm just saying. It didn't even occur to me. You all have seen me before. No, I wear a lot of blue. I'm just saying. So we got to just begin there, right? We just recognize this is tough. So I invite you in this moment to turn into our opening hymn, number 1002, Comfort Me. Please rise in body or spirit. It is in the teal hymnal if you'd like to have the music. Be seated. I invite Jean Jost to offer our opening.
Good morning. I hope this reading will comfort your soul. It's called Here in this Sanctuary of Ancient Dreams by Reverend Jack Mendelson. And the first time I read this, I thought of this sanctuary as being the UU Church. So as you hear about it, you may relate to it at that level. Here, in this sanctuary of ancient dreams and wisdom and beauty, we come to grow, to be healed, to stretch mind and heart, to be challenged, renewed, to be helped in our own continuing struggles for meaning and for love, to help build a world with more justice and mercy in it, to be counted among the hopers and the doers. In the face of cynicism, darkness, brutality around us and within, we seek to align ourselves with a living community, that's our community in this church, that would affirm rather than despair, that would think and act rather than simply adjust and succumb. Here we invite the spirit of our own humanity and the healing powers under, around, through, and beyond it to give us the nerve and the grace, the toughness and the sensitivity to search out the truth that frees and the life that maketh all things new. I hope you related that to our church.
Thank you, Jean. Let me invite Linda and Steve and Callan forward for our chalice lighting.
Hello, everybody. This is our grandson, Callan Howard. Say hi, Cal. Hi. It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. Okay. Do you want to light the chalice? Okay. We light this chalice, symbolic of the warmth of community and the brightness love brings to the world, illuminating our search for justice and peace. Light, that force that nurtures all living things, here in our midst in this flame, so tiny and so significant.
Justice threatens God. The sorrow of a contrite heart. These things shall never die. 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 Let nothing pass, for every man must find some work to do. Lose not a chance to wake and love, be firm and just and true. So shall a light that cannot fail be godly from on high, and angel voices say to thee, these things shall never die. These things shall never die.
Let us seek the quiet and the calm. Let us lay aside our loud calling. Let us lay aside our struggle. Speak softly. Let us listen to the melodies that recall other proportions. Our moments tarry not with us. Let us then seek the dimension that endures beyond all nowness and here-ness, beyond all requirement and particularity. Let us speak softly that we may hear. Let us enter into the quiet. As we enter our moment for meditation with music, you're welcome to come forward, light a candle, to commit the tangible act of bringing a spark into the world as an expression of what is in your mind and on your heart. You're welcome to come forward and light a candle as we enter into our music. Let us enter into our meditation now. spirit of community in which we share and find strength and common purpose. We turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. We bring into our circle of care all who need love and support because they are remembering and celebrating and honoring. These too are part of our great web. We are interconnected one with one another, that all humanity is part of the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness we share that gives us the power to remember, to love. We offer the joys and sorrows of the congregation. I want to extend healing wishes to Nancy Venzon. She fell earlier this week and fractured her pelvis. She is recovering and doing all the things they are making her do to recover. And she is in good spirits and is in welcoming visits and hellos. See the information in the order of service for how to connect with her. She is actively seeking visits, I'm just saying. It was lovely to visit with her on Thursday. We offer our compassion and our condolences to Mary Mulholland Kafar for the death of her wife, Marcia. Marcia died on Monday after having entered hospice for a couple of weeks. Marcia's health had been a concern for quite some time, as I think most of us know. And Mary is, if you see the information, has invited us to look at Marcia's obituary, also in our order of service and in our Friday news. And Mary is letting us know that she will be in Peoria next weekend. And after church on Sunday, next Sunday, she would love to have lunch with anybody from the church family. So just so you know, now you have a social date on your calendar. Thank you. We offer our condolences to Mary for the loss of this dear, dear person in her life. Let us take one more moment for all the joys, the sorrows, the names, the milestones that are with us, that are unspoken. We extend our circle of care for all who are with us in person, for those who are joining us online, for those who will see the service later. That circle of care transcends time and space, did you know? And so we gather. Let us take one more moment and be present and breathe in the quiet. Amen. Shalom. Salam. And let me invite Regina forward to help me with the story this morning. All right. Okay.
Today's story is about different ways to know something. Here is the story called Duck Rabbit, written by Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld. Let us add that Tom Lichtenheld is also a Unitarian Universalist. He is a member where Reverend Jennifer used to serve near Chicago.
Hey, look, a duck.
That's not a duck. That's a rabbit.
Are you kidding me? That's totally a duck.
It's for sure a rabbit.
See, there's the bill.
What are you talking about? Those are her ears, silly.
It's a duck, and it's about to eat a piece of bread.
It's a rabbit, and she's about to eat a carrot.
Oh, there's, nope. Quack, quack. Listen, there were duck sounds, not bunny sounds.
That's funny. I distinctly heard rabbit sounds.
Now the duck is wading through the swamp.
No, the rabbit is hiding in the grass.
Ah, see, now the duck is flying.
Flying, it's hopping.
But here, you can't dispute the duck is so hot, she's getting a drink.
No, the rabbit is so hot, she is cooling off her ears.
Oh, see, look at the duck through binoculars. Ah, binoculars.
Sorry, still a rabbit.
Here, ducky, ducky, ducky. See, this will convince you.
Here, you cute little rabbit.
You scared him away.
I didn't scare him away. You scared him away.
Well, maybe you were right. Maybe that was a rabbit.
Thing is, now, I'm actually thinking it was a duck.
Well, anyway, what do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Hey, look, an anteater.
That's not an anteater. That's a brachiosaurus.
The end. So I wonder when you and another person might have disagreed about how to see the same thing. Maybe how to describe a color or look at a cloud. I wonder if a disagreement has made a big difference or a small difference between you and someone you know, or maybe your family. There are times when different ways to know the same thing changes more than whether we think it's a duck or a rabbit. I wonder what happens when two people you know have a really big difference in what they feel or think or do. Sometimes the difference is so big that people fight with words or with actions, and they might even want to hurt each other. I wonder if you have ever had a fight, a very bad fight, with a friend over rules of a game or how to play with a toy. I wonder what happens when the fight gets so bad that we find we are angry and scared at the same time. And so angry and scared, we don't see the other as a person anymore. I wonder how we find each other as people again. At the end of the story, the two voices say, "Ah, I see the rabbit. Ah, I see the duck." And when people are fighting, how might they say, "I am still angry, I am still scared, but now I see"? Here ends the story. I invite the children and youth and their adults to go to our RE wing for their program today. Let us sing them out. In the moment as we gather, we recognize how important it is to be intentional with our lives in all that we do, in our spiritual practices, in just coming for Sunday morning, for example. We invite ourselves and one another to make a tangible effort to pay attention to our lives, including what we offer in all the gifts that we do. In that spirit, we receive an offering every week during our worship as part of our collection, a part of our financial support. And we share a portion of this financial abundance with our Share the Plate practice as well. So each week, 1/3 of the undesignated offering goes to the monthly recipients. And our recipient for this month is the Picket Fence Foundation. They provide employment and training opportunities for adults with disabilities, and they also set examples of disability inclusion with other businesses. And so they are invited to develop skills, to relate to folks, to learn a business, and so on. I want to encourage folks to make an offering for today. 2/3 of the undesignated collection goes to the church. 1/3 will go to our recipient, the Picket Fence Foundation, this month. Please use the envelopes for your offering, indicate its use, or go to the QR code in the order of service. And I want to thank everybody for all the gifts that we give. We've been doing a great job with giving to our recipients this year, and it goes a little at a time, and it does make a difference. So thank you. And now I invite the ushers. Will you please come forward? Let me invite Regina Stanley forward for our reading today.
In These Times in Which the Ground Feels Shaky by Reverend Joan Javier Duval. In these times in which the ground feels shaky and our hands and feet unsteady, we turn to you, O source of strength, spirit of compassion, for we do not know what the future holds. Truly, we can never know. We need strength in these times of uncertainty. We need the strength and the fortitude to hold on, to see clearly, to reach out in love. May we find guidance within ourselves and beyond ourselves. May we be restless for truth when truth is cast aside. May we be seekers of peace as the drumbeats of war grow louder around us. May we hear and sound the alarm for our planet as fires rage and ravage. And in all this, may love rule our hearts. May we know the source of love within us and stay grounded in that source. As we grieve, as we grapple with the unknown, as we work towards creating a more just, peaceful, and sustainable present and future together. So may it be. Amen.
Please rise in body or spirit for our hymn number 1002 in the Teal hymnal, When I Am Frightened. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th last fall, we entered a new chapter in the Arab-Israeli conflict. This conflict, this chapter is one with real impact on our country, both politically and with relationships, with our history and in the present. We can't ignore it, as we have often done with other international crises, such as those in Africa, for example. This one comes home due to U.S. political history being home to large populations of Jews and Arabs, and for so many more reasons. I admit I haven't had to consider the existence of Israel and its impact until now. I did study some Bible in divinity school. I have a vague sense of political, historic, and economic challenges in the Middle East, but I didn't really have to pay attention. And now Israel is a whole different concern. So when this began last fall, I didn't have an answer, and I have to say, the more I learned in the immediate weeks, the more I couldn't imagine a sermon that said more than, "It's complicated," or either that or a day of unpacking. There was no in between. So now, this many months into the conflict, after some study and thought and reading of the news, I'm going to give it a go. And so what I offer is not the answer. It is one reflection. And if I have something wrong, please tell me about it later. I'm sure you will. That's okay. I can't and won't cover every question either. I am not an expert. In fact, I am more uncomfortable with what I thought I knew, and I have more questions than when I started. That's at least a sign of progress, right? And I will go back and forth between talking about Israel and Palestine, Hamas, Jewish and Arab. And I want from the outset to recognize that this particular conflict is not one between equal powers. I am not saying that at all. Israel is one of the most heavily armed countries in the world, and Hamas is not. But rather than simply lecture at some remove, I'm going to go in with the personal and the subjective. Because I happen to have a small connection with the Arab-Israeli conflict. And it's not because I am Jewish or Arabic, because I am neither, but through the work of my grandmother. So let me tell you about her. You would have liked her. So Lois Innis Hackett was my father's mother. She grew up in Massachusetts in an upper middle class home in the middle of Massachusetts, not near much else. She had a great education at Smith College in the 1930s. In fact, she stayed and got her master's in journalism because she refused to fit into the typical jobs of nurse and teacher that were designated, and secretary that were for women at the time. She was a writer and often a journalist. I remember her as very artistic, as a very cosmopolitan woman. She introduced me to the arts, including theater, and brought me to places that added to my social education. She dressed well and with a sense of style. Her wardrobe was so much fun. She was fluent in French as well. The one children's book I remember from her apartment. I'm going to say she's not one of those grandmothers that had like the kid-friendly apartment. It wasn't. That's okay. But the one book I remember in particular is was a version of Disney's The Aristocats. But of course it was in French. We loved that book too. My brothers and I were her only grandchildren, and she chose to live relatively near us, so we had some time to spend with her. And a lot of the time we spent there were looking at photos and books and art. Now, I thought about my grandmother for this message because my father is reading right now the letters that she sent from her years in Europe. In fact, we looked at some of those over our visit at New Year's. Lois wanted more than life in a quiet New England town could possibly offer, or even the city of Worcester in the middle of Massachusetts. The second largest city of New England was not enough. So she ended up drawn to writing and working in Europe, beginning in the late 1950s. And eventually, she was offered a job with the Jewish Distribution Center, also known as the JDC. Now, the JDC was the body that was assisting with refugees and financial distributions from the German war reparations. And Lois might have started as a glorified secretary, but her work grew, especially once they figured out she really could speak French. And she was part of the JDC in Geneva, Switzerland. And she started there in 1958 and stayed until her retirement in 1975. That was a total of 17 years of her life in Geneva. She came back, once she retired, she came back so she could hang out with the grandchildren, so that was good. Her job included letting people know how life was developing in Israel as it established itself. And in addition to the funds from the German war reparations, many donors, especially from this country, also contributed. And she met with them in Geneva. She also traveled to Israel with major donors and powerful people at times, including some of the families with historic ties to the people who had added to the political discussion that started the idea of creating a home for the Jews in the early 20th century. I mean, the Long families, right? My father said that part of her job was supporting, part of the job was unpacking and supporting how refugees could create their new lives as well. Lois loved being part of the Jewish community. The people she knew were a family for her. As someone, she was far from the place where she grew up. There were photos of her visiting in Israel in her apartment. I remember those, and she looked very happy. And I'll say, not surprisingly, her life informed my understanding of Israel. I mean, to me, it was a land of culture and history where people were building new lives in their new nation. Certainly, the horror of World War II was there and present, because she also, her work as part of showing how the money was going to refugees also was showing how the money was not going to weapons. That's an interesting conversation. No, the money is not going to weapons. And she was there as a publicist to further broadcast how people were migrating, create a community, establishing families, and so much more. What's also true is that when Israel was founded in 1948, there were people there, right? Arabs, Palestinians, people of many different ethnicities and faiths, and that was their land too. So here is where there's many things that are all true at the same time. And here is where I promise I will misspeak and say something that somebody will take issue with, and still here we go. I'll offer I support the idea of the Jewish state, and even the need. I mean, I can't begin to grapple with the impact of centuries of Jewish diaspora, of anti-Semitism, of the Holocaust being the most shocking chapter in this human experience. We cannot underestimate how the generational trauma triggers fear and reaction in people when they encounter the smallest sign of bias, the slightest word or turn of phrase that has historically been used against them. I mean, this is true. At the same time, I am baffled at best by how the powers that were could think that forming Israel the way that they did including driving out hundreds of thousands of people, was a good idea. I'm at best baffled and at worst disgusted, and much more. The Nakba and the experience of occupation is real, too. I lament the inability of those in power to find another path, a more peaceful one, a less disruptive, more humane path. I also offer this knowing that the Jewish community is not a monolith itself, either within the same generation or across generations. Israel is not a monolith either. There is the leadership and there is the people, and there's a lot in between. And the disagreements about Israel, Zionism, and much more are dividing families as well as communities. Many who are part of the Jewish community globally are against this conflict and what Israel has become. That's also true. And the latest news includes the Gaza death toll at about 30,000 people, with thousands more missing under the rubble. So much is present and in our lives all at once. So what would my grandmother say about this terrible, terrible price? Lois didn't comment on the political dynamics in her letters, not much. My father doesn't have specifics about her opinions on the larger picture. So many of the letters were going to her mother. She didn't really engage with that with her. But I know the Israel of my grandmother's time was the emerging nation, the Golda Meir, the David Ben-Gurion. Lois died at the very, very end of 1993, well before Hamas came to power. But I think probably there were signs of the religious conservatism beginning to show. She would have been concerned about that. And she would want the Jewish community to have a place free from persecution. She also didn't suffer fools. I bet she would have things to say about the ever-long encroachment of settlers into the West Bank and the violence against Palestinians there, as well as in Israel itself. She would have things to say about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership and the scale of the destruction against Gaza. The human and cultural loss is beyond count. And Lois may even be heartbroken at what has become of her beloved Jewish community and the conflict as different generations consider the existence of Israel and have questions about its formation and its future. So what would I say to her? If I was going to write to my grandmother, we called her Grammy Hackett, just so you know, not Lois, Grammy. I would say I side with the people, all the people, those alive and trying to live now, and those of centuries and decades past wanting to be in the land that they call home and navigating the whims of changes in rules and governances and tolerances for religious freedom and for cultural existence. I would raise the questions of history and choices that brought us to this point. As much as I want the Jewish community to be free from persecution and harm, no government, no body is above question. And our task is to inquire, and certainly inquire of our own governments and leaders too. I would lament with her, probably, the gender violence being investigated from Hamas's attack on October 7th. That is the most debated point in our local conversation. War is hell, and we create hell on earth when we are at war and violate each other in profound, terrible ways. Make no mistake. And the language. There's a lot of different language that shows up on both sides of this conflict, including language that calls for the absolute destruction of the other in various forms. From Hamas to Israel, from Netanyahu to Hamas. No group is without fault, and humanity gets lost in the middle. When there is no room for nuance, for relationship, everyone loses. I also side with the earth and the consumption of materials that create war, the destruction of the fields and agriculture that has happened, and the pollution of the earth as a result of all this conflict. Somebody should be speaking for the earth itself, frankly. I agree with the ceasefire, the calls for ceasefire, because the military solution isn't working. It is devastating Gaza physically and emotionally. The military fight will create the next generation of resistance and violence. We will perpetuate this. The conflict is feeding anti-Semitism and Islamophobia around the world and in this country, and it is furthering the dehumanization of those who aren't Christian. This is partially where it comes to us. The conflict is fueling this country's social and political divide just the way certain people would like it to. In case you didn't know, the Unitarian Universalist Association repeated and reiterated its calls for ceasefire this week. And the president of our association, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, along with a number of religious leaders, sent a letter to President Biden this week calling for a ceasefire. From my reading, and I think we should be showing up for this conversation more than we are, from my reading, the shift to supporting a home for the Jews, for supporting a Zion, this particular kind of Zion effort, 100 years ago, was a political move on the U.S. part. And as much as it was, a spiritual or ethical or what other kind of movie you're talking about, it was political as much as anything. The fight between Israel and Hamas has been coming for a while. And the U.S. leadership needs to believe the hardship that people are suffering and exert influence to de-escalate the situation from Israel's end. As of this writing, people keep wrangling and people keep dying, really. I commit to listening, asking questions with as much curiosity and compassion as I can. The local conversation is hard. Just go back and listen to the recording of the city council meeting on Tuesday night. But also religious leaders are trying to talk with each other. The pain is so present just in our corner of the world. I will attend and listen to as many public and private conversations as I can. I saw these words today. Our most powerful response to the horror of Palestine is to refuse to surrender our humanity. If you feel grief strongly, if you feel broken and in pain, allow yourself to feel it all. Refuse to surrender our humanity. My grandmother, Lois, didn't have strong religious connections, but I think she would agree. Do not surrender our humanity. It is nearly countercultural to see ourselves and each other as people and not as objects or commodities or arguments. So I invite us to commit to our humanity, to that of our neighbors, to those we will never meet. I invite us, if we were going to write the letter about Gaza, to offer that powerful work and that powerful witness to each other. May it be so. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 159, This Is My Song.
Daring Vision by Reverend Warren Kiloram. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth.
We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling into the world. May we close this time together with the humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace. Each day, every day, we are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible. We are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible when justice and equity ground us in all we do. May we go forth when light and warmth with the chalice in our hearts until we are together again. Our worship is ended. Let our service begin.